Welcome back to This Film Not Rated, a branch of the Drive-In Podcast Network. I'm Eric.
And I'm Curtis.
And today we are here to not rate a movie we watched this week. It seems that everyone out there thinks that movies are one or the other, binary, good or bad. So we're on our mission to try and prove if that's even really possible. And thankfully, we can continue to report we're failing. So we try and make it through questions in a gauntlet, answering objective truths to a movie. And then, when we inevitably can't do that, we talk about our opinion of the movie and sort of enjoy art for art's sake instead of a competition. So, did that seem a little attacky? Well, it's not aimed at anyone. It's mostly down to how I feel about this week's movie, which is what, Curtis?
Well, I mean, if you can't tell by now, this week
I have no idea. I noticed you got a really nice hat on today.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice hat. This week we are talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the brand new Indiana Jones film where Harrison Ford plays like an 80-year-old Indiana Jones, something like that, as he deals with the struggles of the idea of that the world no longer needs him, and kind of being a useless relic from the past and going on one last adventure in an attempt to kind of recapture the old vigor that he once had.
Does he?
Well, find out when we talk about it.
Remember, the stakes of this is that if you successfully answer 15 questions with just objective facts and answer the questions, you get a prop from the movie to the best of our efforts. And a tiny little plaque signed that says, you managed to have the objective truth about whatever movie you did. Okay? I can think of no franchise where there's any more money at stake in terms of getting props, you know? So what is it you would want from Dial of Destiny if you got through this?
I mean, either the dial itself or the fake spear that stabbed into Christ at the beginning of the movie. One of those two.
Yeah, the spear. Is that thing called the Spear of Destiny? That was driving me crazy.
It's not. I called it something else. I can't remember the name.
No, but that artifact is commonly referred to, I believe, as the Spear of Destiny, and that really irritated me. I was like, why are you doing this?
It might be. I honestly don't know.
It's Archimedes' dial and the Spear of Destiny in the Dial of Destiny. Like, what the... Let's just cut right to the chase.
Mm-hmm.
The objective truth. Give us the reality, Curtis. Is it good or bad?
Is it good or bad? I honestly left this movie feeling very mixed. It has some very emotionally heavy moments, and like probably some of the strongest characterization that I've seen Harrison Ford give the character of Indiana Jones, probably in all the movies.
By what facts?
By what facts? I mean, in Indiana Jones 1 and 2, he has very little characterization. He's mostly just like action guy, going through a set series of adventures. And in Last Crusade, most of his characterization comes from him building a relationship with his father and exploring that. You don't really get any kind of personal growth with him that isn't kind of related to his father. And you kind of get the same thing with Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, where most of his characterization comes from his relationship with Mutt. In this one, most of his characterization comes from looking back on his past and kind of building on that. So it's the first Indiana Jones movie where his characterization doesn't come from an outside character, it comes from an inner struggle. Okay.
I had no problem with the idea that this is the most emotional Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
That idea. I think there's plenty of evidence to back that up. There's just straight up sequences where Indiana Jones stops to acknowledge the death of a loved one, and that doesn't happen in other movies.
Mm-hmm.
and there's like conversations where he mourns the loss of his life, and he makes active decisions that are grappling with grief.
Okay.
But your characterization, your idea, is something that I've heard other people say, which is that Indiana Jones has almost no characterization. And that's, one, he's James Bond, so that's not true. Like, there's straight up a character that he is. It might be a little one-dimensional, but you take any one movie, Temple of Doom, he probably has the least characterization, and that's the one set earliest in his life. But it's a ludicrously complex relationship with Marion that this man, who's been an archaeologist his whole life, has so many ties to other people, and he's taken advantage of someone, and she comes out of his past, and he feels like he's wronged her, and he has to take her along, keep her safe, earn back her trust. There's so much complication to him and Marion's relationship in that first movie.
All right.
So I just got to say, like, that's, I've heard people saying it, and it is weird, like, bothering me that it's like the idea that there's like some inherent value. No, this is not what you were saying, but the idea that there's some inherent value to him just being an action hero versus trying to be a character somehow makes one or the other lesser than. It's like, nah, both work. Both have historically worked. Yeah. Like, I gotta say, I started, when I heard that James Mangold was taking over and Steven Spielberg was stepping down, the original enthusiasm I had was lost. There is a lot of behind-the-scenes stories about the development of the Indiana Jones franchise over time. It starts with a collaborative meeting between Lawrence Kasdan, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas, and you can read a transcript of them in the room cracking out basically the entire character and the entire idea of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. And then that movie had so much passion behind it from Steven Spielberg for a lot of reasons, and he meticulously storyboarded that movie, and it is so clean, so geographically, like, plotted out. And then George Lucas had an idea. And he took some of the ideas that were discarded from, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, like the opening in Shanghai and all that, and they put together Temple of Doom, and they explored some differences with the character, and it wasn't really the Nazis, they went a different direction. George Lucas was going through a divorce, they tried to skew it dark because of Empire Strikes Back, and it was a hive mind thing, not entirely driven by Steven Spielberg, who openly admitted he didn't really spend as much time on the storyboarding or anything either, that you get Temple of Doom. Dissatisfied with that being the ending, you get a 5 years planning, development, and creation of The Last Crusade. Meticulously storyboarded, doing all this. George Lucas tried to pitch it as a haunted house Indiana Jones movie, and they were like, no. Steven Spielberg driving the movie towards the adventure serial that he wants it to be, and they ride off into the sunset, so that Temple of Doom is not the ending, this is the ending. And for 20 years, George Lucas wants him to do Aliens. And do you remember how he finally caved?
What if it's not aliens? What they're interdimensional beings now, and then just
fine, George. Fine.
And like that's the main thing that you notice. And like I went back and watched Raiders and Temple of Doom kind of in preparation for this new one, and I haven't seen Temple of Doom in probably close to 10 years or so. The last time I watched it in full was the first time you showed it to me. With these movies, you can tell which ones Spielberg actively cared about and which ones he was just going along for.
Well, I still think he's puts a lot of heart and soul into like any set that he's on, and the relationships are still there. It's not like he doesn't care about Harrison Ford one way or the other, So, I mean, I really like Temple of Doom, even though it has glaring issues. Like the raft, obviously, the number one issue.
That whole raft sequence going over the cliff.
Then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has, and I've heard a lot of people echoing this, and this is how I feel about it, it has moments that are ridiculous. Nuking the fridge, swinging on the vines, it has moments. Other than that, depending on the sequence, things feel artificial because of an overuse of CGI. But other than that, I don't think I can fault Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as large. It's not like it's some horrendous abomination. It's here's the deal, though. I got excited because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did terribly and had this infamously horrible reputation. And so Steven Spielberg, once again, just like after Temple of Doom, said, well, I can't let it end this way.
Yeah.
But would not move forward on the movie until they found the story that would work.
Mm-hmm.
And that took so long, he's not going to do it. James Mangold's going to do it. And I was like, okay, so we've broken the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be the passionate Steven Spielberg return in order to send off this franchise in a way that would be hyped for Raiders, Last Crusade, and this one.
Yeah.
This is going to be someone else trying to prove themselves with their own set of skills, where you take 4 installments that all feel like they belong in the exact same world. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to have one that is trying desperately to fake like it's in that same world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, eh. And then I heard John Williams' score played for Phoebe Walla Bridge's character.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the trailers. And then I felt feelings. And I was like, well, if I'm going to care at all, then this is going to be Indiana Jones, and I'm going to go into it.
All right.
So what's the good in this movie?
Good. Need to think about this one. You know what? I still really liked how Harrison Ford plays the character. For the most part, I actually really enjoyed the opening set piece. Having like a flashback, we're seeing like the climax to an Indiana Jones adventure that we're just seeing the ending bit, the climax of, and it's kind of like a renewal, a revival of the character in that sense. But like that whole sequence just felt like old Indiana Jones, and like kind of like getting you excited for the adventure to come, and then you smash cuts to like 80-year-old Indiana Jones getting upset that the young neighbors next door are playing their music too loud. Yeah. And it cuts back to reality almost, and it's like almost jarring to an extent. But I liked Phoebe Waller. I can't remember her name.
Bridge.
Yeah. I liked her character after halfway through the movie. At the beginning, I couldn't stand her. I thought she was irritating.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I've heard that from a lot of people, and I don't get it.
For me, it mostly comes from how smug and how, like, just willing to double-cross everyone she's ever known is all for the sake of money. It's almost like with Mac's character in Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, and to be fair, he's kind of jarring too. And they like with him,
I love that with Mac. What are you, a triple agent? Like
yeah. But I started liking her character a bit more after the boat sequence when she gets when she pulls off the dynamite stunt, and she gets a little bit closer to Indy.
And she does nothing for the rest of the movie after that moment.
She kind of doesn't. But her attitude...
They leave from there. She sits. The child gets kidnapped. She leads the way through. She gets bugs on her. They brush bugs off of them. Indy finds out about going under the water. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then she tries to get on a plane. And then she deals with the ending, that moment.
Yeah.
I see, it's so confusing to me because she's Indiana Jones. And to me, it's very weird to hear people be like, I don't like Indiana Jones. Like, now I know Indiana Jones seems more like, if you think immediately of Belloc betrays him in the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
You think of Indiana Jones as being someone who has, like, a moral stance to him and, like, allegiances to people. And when he's betrayed by people like Elsa and Mac and all that, it feels wrong. But at the same time, he's pulling off tricks all the time to steal things back. It's really clearly defined who's good and who's evil, and the only difference is that Phoebe Waller-Bridge doesn't seem to care who's good and who's evil. She just cares about the money.
Even like in the beginning of Temple of Doom, when he's completely animus towards Willie. At that point, when he is outwardly hostile towards her, she's at that point she's already been annoying by screaming and shouting, only caring about.
No, the way that starts is he puts a knife to her gut and kidnaps her.
Puts a knife to her gut to get the diamond.
Mm-hmm. And then he kidnaps her.
Well, he grabbed her because she had the antidote in her breast pocket, so he grabbed her to get that.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. Yeah. That's right, and then he gropes her in order to try and get it out. Yeah.
But at that time, like, you're already on Indy's side and not liking her, so him being rude and, like, just angry at her doesn't matter because you're also in that mindset. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah, but you've had all of Raiders of the Lost Ark to be on Indy's side. I wonder what it would be like if that was just your introduction.
Right, but you don't get any of that with Phoebe Waller's character, except for that initial scene where she's sharing a sort of interest with Indy about the sieging of Syracuse.
Right. She was a child. She looked up to him. He was her godfather. She loves the same things that he loves.
Right. So when she's outwardly betraying Indy, we don't know any of the motivations at that point. It's just
like by locking him in with the other Nazis.
Yeah.
No, you don't know her motivations, but you know that she's being hunted by evil people.
But she had plenty of time to let Indy go through. Why not let him go through? You don't know why she's locked in behind.
What's smug about that?
That's not the smug part. It's the way that she's grinning and kind of like laughing at the camera or like laughing at Indy as she's running away.
I don't know. I guess I'm not going to understand it because to me it's like she's excited to be on an adventure and she's already displayed to Indiana Jones. Don't you want to go on an adventure? I want to go on an adventure. So every time she's about to do something thrilling and she smiles about it, why wouldn't you read it as that?
I mean, at first I did, but then after the betrayal and knowing that she actively deceived Indy just to get the dial, that scene is
kind of makes you turn on her for a little bit.
Yeah, it is recontextualized as a doublespeak and just manipulation instead of like earnest bonding over a shared interest.
That brings me into like my ludicrously long list of things that I do not like about the movie, which is a hard thing to kind of say. Is how in the hell do they blame Indiana Jones for the death of his colleagues?
He left a bloody fingerprint on the phone, therefore he's the killer.
Well, I don't know if it's that or if it's because he ran away from the police in the street.
It could
chase that by the other people.
Yeah, it's probably a mix.
Either way, it's a stretch and it doesn't make sense. And Red Letter Media pointed out in their thing, there's all these weird moments, like they're taking him out into a crowd, and he tries to get the crowd cheering as if that's going to make more of a distraction, and it's like a really weird moment. Mm-hmm. You know, versus in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when he starts a fight to cause a distraction to get away from the Russians.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see what they're going for, so you can see how it's weird and doesn't work.
Yeah.
That begins a long line of editing problems and reasoning for people's like actions problems.
Right.
Where the villains randomly decide not to kill people. There's a point where the villains during the car chase, the super long car chase.
Yeah.
The villains fire a machine gun, okay, at Indiana Jones, and on the other side is like the drug lords or whoever that is, that are supposed to be, this is in Morocco, they're supposed to be tied to Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah.
So Indy uses his foot to like jam the machine gun up against the front of their car so it shoots past their car into the Moroccan like people chasing them. Mm-hmm. Okay? Then, like 2 seconds later, a bad guy points a gun out of the car again towards Indy.
Yeah.
Past the guy from Sandman and from Logan. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. And he literally says, "What are you, crazy?" and knocks the gun down.
Yeah, that's weird. It's like they didn't care at all during the horse chase scene back in, I think, New York is where that was.
Yeah. And then it happens again. It's driving me insane. The dynamite sequence that you're talking about. Kill Indiana Jones. She knows where to go. Kill Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Why are you not killing Indiana Jones? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is Indiana Jones and the worst case of plot armor. Like, there is nothing in this movie that looks as good and is edited as smoothly and pulls off that way. Characters, like the visual language of the movie, when he's on the horse, he's moving right to left on screen, right to left on screen, right to left on screen, then left to right on screen when he gets downstairs, then right to left to run away from the train, then left to right in order to jump back up onto a platform, then right to left. Like, you can kind of make sense of what's going on, but I think some of the worst offenders in the movie are small moments, like when the villains raise their goggles and watch Indiana Jones going away, and Indiana Jones points out, "We're going a different direction." And then it's like a full minute and a half to 2 minutes later, you cut back and the person's still watching them, and then goes, "They're heading east, not west," and then it immediately fades away from his face.
Yeah, that was a very awkward edit.
Why? All of the CGI in this movie looked fake, dated at least 10 years to me. Because 10 years now is 2013, so you think of something like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And how, like, photorealistic some of the visual effects were in a blockbuster like that. This movie had no excuse, looking as green screened and just straight up. Everyone keeps talking about, like, the face, and like I can tell that there are shots where the face is pulled off and looks good enough that when he moves, you can only kind of barely tell what's going on. But then they have the sequence where he's hanging and he falls free.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that there was no actor. It was just a Gumby Indiana Jones made digitally, scattering to get to his feet. And I was just like, why did we do that? Why didn't you just cut to an outside shot of an explosion, and then a shot of the thing falling, and then just cut to a really quick, like, he falls from, like, this high off the ground and goes boom, and is like, oh, and, like, gets up. Like, why? Why? I'm constantly asking why this entire movie.
Yeah, the only reason why this movie felt like an Indiana Jones adventure at all to me was mostly because of John Williams' score, which was just probably one of my favorite things about this movie was that score. Because I went into this movie not knowing that it was his score, so that he was scoring, or that this was going to be his last movie that he would ever score. And as soon as the score picks up, I could instantly recognize the style. I could hear, like, I could discern Marion Ravenwood's theme being sewn into parts where Indy is being reminiscent and mournful about that. It just felt like his music, and my first thought was, wait, did they just mimic John Williams' style so well that it just sounds like his? And I had no idea.
Yeah, he retired with this movie, and I feel a little bit bad that I don't think I could hum a single new theme.
I can't either. I recognized all the old ones. I can't think of a single new one. As much as I liked Harrison Ford playing in Indiana Jones, there were just some sequences where I felt like they shot things because of his age, in Morocco during the car chase scene. I felt like that scene was only a car chase because Harrison Ford can't run anymore. I mean, they could have just put in a stunt double.
They had a stunt double. I shared this on Twitter not too long ago. There's the mask. Had faces, masks. Like they have all of the technology to do that. This is the beginning of my controversial opinion, where I want to talk a little bit more about how I felt on This Week in Movies. I don't think anything in this movie was done due to fan opinion or limitations like that. It's clear by the script they wanted his character to be aged.
Yeah.
So I think it was the vision from the beginning for him to not have to do things that he would not be able to do, because they could have.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and it's like with Mutt Williams dying.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 more spoiler podcast. They did not need to do that.
Nope.
Mutt Williams is an adult who didn't know Indiana Jones before the fourth movie. Indiana Jones, like, was estranged from his father off screen for all of his adventures, like except the third one. Like, that and then he's dead in the fourth one. You know, like, there's no reason for them to be like, we have to write off Mutt Williams. No reason. I feel like everything in this is deliberate, not a circumstance of having to appease an audience or explain things or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, even going so far as to, like, near the end, when Indiana Jones and Phoebe Walla Bridge are, like, climbing the wall to get into the final place where the other half of the dial is, like, he pauses and starts to, like, complain about all the crap he's been through his adventure, saying how he has screws and metal bits just surgically implanted in because of how much pain and damage that he's gone through throughout all the years. But yeah, like, that was the other thing. Like, this is, like, they've done it before in other Indiana Jones movies, but this was kind of, like, reference heavy towards his past adventures. Like, Phoebe Walla Bridge saying, haven't you ever been obsessed with something that your dad was, calling back to Last Crusade? Phoebe Walla Bridge's assistant is clearly a short round character. They even have a very similar backstory.
What's Short Round's backstory?
Indy caught him stealing from him on the streets after his parents were killed during the bombings in Shanghai, and they became friends.
Phoebe Walla Bridge caught him stealing
from her.
See, this is getting into the thing that I want to talk about. There's two ways to explain that. Callbacks, because this isn't the Steven Spielberg one, and you want to remind people of those adventures so that you tie this one into them, and that's Disney making a choice, and you get notes from a studio, and probably the real way that the machine operates.
Yeah.
On the flip side, that kid is not Short Round. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is not Indiana Jones. But they're close enough to make you look at them and think that they're supposed to be like them. So there's, what are you, stupid? There's a real world. Short Round is a fiction from a fantasy from a time past that you can't have. The reality is this kid needs to steal from other children to get ice cream. You know, we don't see Short Round having to survive.
No.
And so for, like, to look at a kid and go, that's probably just the Short Round of the movie, is what they're expecting you to say. So why is it in there? And then when you think about callbacks and stuff like that, there are two very key things. One is when Indiana Jones, says, I've seen many things, I've come to learn that it's not what you believe in, it's how hard you believe it.
Yeah.
And then, and it's this, like, I've seen a few things in my time, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, I have too. Things I can't explain. And she is also not more bewildered than Indiana Jones by what happens in the third act. So there's just enough there that we are supposed to look at her and go, she's Indiana Jones, but she deliberately strangles the audience, punches them in the face, and tells them, shut up, you're not allowed to look backwards, you have to move forwards. You can't go back to having Indiana Jones. The one that you're thinking is gonna be like they're trying to build her up to be Indiana Jones, she goes, no. And it was about halfway through this movie that it started to piece together. The villains want to believe they're the Nazi force, but they're just three broken people who are nothing.
Right.
Indiana Jones is living in the reality that he's lost his son and his wife and his life, and he's lost everything there. And when Sala, a man from his past to bring a new adventure into his life, is like, give him hell, Indiana Jones, the world screeches to a halt and honks at him in a car.
Yeah.
There is something to this movie about every single time you're watching the movie trying to deliver what you think you want from an Indiana Jones movie, action, adventure, mystery, thrills.
Mm-hmm.
It's all CGI garbage that is not taken care of.
Yeah.
It's all just made well enough to show you we could make that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not. Like, and so everyone is like complaining about like the differences in how it feels very slow, and it should be an Indiana Jones adventure, but it's like this movie just feels like it's saying like, no. Like that, like you have 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what is going to actually happen to a man who lived into his 60s and keeps trying to live that same life? He's going to either die or screw up his past.
Mm-hmm.
And so the alternative hit me, and I actually cried at the end of this movie. Harrison Ford's delivery of his pain of losing his son,
mm-hmm.
and how real it hit him, I thought Harrison Ford did an amazing job with that. And he's continuing to play that suffering through the end of it, and I don't think I'm ever going to forget this exchange where they start to have a very real conversation. Marion shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And Indiana Jones has been shot, and of course he's been on another adventure,
mm-hmm.
and of course, but she says, where does it hurt? And he just says, everywhere, speaking to the grief and the loss and everything that he's lost.
Yeah.
And she says, I know what that feels like, saying, you know, yes, I'm still hurting too. And then Indiana Jones, that character,
mm-hmm.
says, where doesn't it hurt?
Yeah.
And copes with the reality by just enjoying the past for what it was, not trying to live in it. And then he moves on.
Yeah.
And it's very important, I think, that like a young Indiana Jones swoops into his life and says, you want to go back? You can't. Move on.
I mean, that's for sure one way to look at it. I never thought that at all in my initial viewing. I just thought it was just like a kind of like a lackluster Indiana Jones adventure. I was kind of excited once Antonio Banderas showed up, but then he got so little airtime and screen time, and you didn't really get to see much of the relationship between him and Indiana Jones. That I don't. That when Indy was grieving about the death of his friend, I couldn't feel it because I didn't get to actually see the actual bond that they had. So that felt.
I put in my notes. Why wasn't he Sala?
Exactly. It's like when you're first introduced to Sala, like they're one, he's in like half the film. 2, you get like a good 15 minutes of them talking and being friendly and showing that these guys have history. The most you get is, hey, I remember you from all those years ago that we don't know and we don't get to see, and we don't get to see. It's just strange and it feels hollow.
See, even in that moment, I feel like at first I wrote, why isn't Antonio Banderas Sala?
Yeah.
And then, if you think about it, Sala begs Indiana Jones to go on his adventure with him. Why?
It goes back to what you were saying before, I'm assuming is what you're going to say.
He's like, he brought his passport with him, and he wants to go with him, and he wants to do that. But the truth is, if he had gone, and he had died, Indiana Jones doesn't have that life to move forward in. Where he has Sala and Marion just enough to look back on and enjoy his past, but still move forward. So if you kill Sala, that point shakes.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also could be reinforced. You know, you can't do this. There's real consequences to this. Sala dies. You know, that very well could have been a thing.
Again, and again, I'm mixed on this movie because I can go back and I can think of moments that I really enjoyed, like as weird as it is, the horse riding scene throughout New York, I actually really like that sequence.
Me too.
The whole sequence with him running down into the subway and just getting out of the and getting out of the way of the train just in time. Both times when he dodges it the first time, then getting back onto the platform, were very fun and very Indiana Jones. Even like him like escaping from the school when he's locked behind and he has to find a clever way to get out of that situation. That was a nice sequence.
Yeah.
It just, everything else just feels just a little bit off. Like Indiana Jones being scared of bugs, which is weird.
Yeah, because you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, he just like knocks the spiders off and stays calm.
Yeah.
He knocks them off of Speedo? I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah.
And then
Temple of Doom.
he lights, in Temple of Doom, he lights the thing and he sees the bugs, but he doesn't freak out or anything.
Yeah.
Even he kind of does.
Yeah, and even in Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls with scorpions, it's the small ones you want to look out for. He's not freaked out like Mud is about the scorpions. So that just felt very out of character for him.
Yeah, but
it's like there are like moments of that sprinkled throughout.
They tried to force things like eels. He's upset with eels, and the kid's like, they look like snakes, and it's like, why are you doing this? Like, you
have to mention it's an Indiana Jones movie. You have to mention that he's scared of snakes.
Yeah, but it's, you already have Last Crusade do a clever twist on that by pointing out that his dad has a phobia too, and like that's
right.
Enough. I loved Harrison Ford in this.
Yeah,
I loved him in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for being able to pull off continuing to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
but this was its own take on the character, and I loved it. Like, yeah, no, I did too. I still like Harrison Ford as a Indiana Jones. I still like how different he plays the character, and it is a somewhat breath of fresh air just to see him played in a more realistic way, which it's always fun to have a different take. It's kind of why I like Last Jedi so much. I don't know if I like it more than I like Empire Strikes Back, but it is definitely up there as far as like favorite Star Wars movies go. Yeah, well, the thing is, The Last Jedi has some critically terrible flaws in it. Like, crucially, cripplingly awful moments. But its foundation is so much more thoughtful about the nature of the entire franchise and so cohesive and so right for the choices the characters have made. I'm never going to understand why people wanted some lightsaber-wielding badass Luke Skywalker when the whole point of the end of Return of the Jedi is he throws his lightsaber away and that's why he wins.
Yeah.
I'm never going to understand why people are like, but he should be like a badass. Like, no, that's the beginning of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Where he thinks that's how to be a badass. Mm-hmm. You forgot that movie has an arc in it. So,
and this movie has an arc in it too, and it takes Phoebe Waller to like make that arc come true, because without her, he doesn't get the arc. He stops in the middle.
Yeah, there's just so many, I really, something about me is really warming up to this movie for the opposite. It's like, this is a movie that on the whole has problems, but there are these tiny moments that carry so much weight that it sort of elevates the thing.
Yeah.
And, I loved Mads Mikkelsen's panic at the seed of doubt Indiana Jones plants.
Right,
when he's like, he didn't think about tectonic plate movement.
Yeah.
And he actually tries to turn the ship around and throws off everything. Mm-hmm. His whole life has been one direction. And he breaks down in a very real way.
Mads Mikkelsen was fun as always. You kind of almost a one-note character, and I'm kind of surprised he still has a head. He's going on like a 50, 80 mile an hour train, and his head gets whacked by a wooden post.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, again, Gumby people, and they try to de-age him too, and nobody talks about that, and I thought that looked fake as hell. I will say, all of the villains are very one-note.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I feel like that's the point, and I know I'm wrong. I know that I'm wrong, but that's not the point. But I feel like they stand in contrast to a real world full of people, and there's still, nope, Nazis have to be Nazis, and it's just one-minded, and that's all we ever think about. It's like, it's been decades, man. You never wanted a wife? You never wanted any partner? I don't know, the way Mads Mikkelsen's character swings, you know? Well, I guess no, because he's a Nazi. No, so we know exactly which way he swings. So, never mind.
I mean, his character does have a line that kind of sort of supports this theory that you're going on, and it's like, the world has no more room for men like us, Dr. Emma Jones, or something like that, when he's in the room.
There's a kinship.
Yeah.
And they're so obsessed with it that they get them thrown back there. Then Indiana Jones kind of gets sucked into it too and, like, wants to stay. There are a lot of lines. Like, I don't have, like, notes on the specifics of it, but it was what people were saying. And there are other people who have had a read like mine on the movie. I shared one the other day where they talk about the role that nostalgia plays in this movie and how the message of this movie kind of does seem to be on the surface. Nostalgia is okay, just don't get lost in it. That's not the point. You know, like, it should be a good thing. And I think it's very easy to take that read away from the movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with this being what it is, which is, you know, Harrison Ford's send off to the character. But yeah, like, this is just it's just a nice sense. It's a nice send off. It stands in contrast to everything else that Indiana Jones has been, which is kind of a reason to go back and watch it. I don't know if I ever will, but
yeah, I absolutely will.
There are definitely moments and scenes that stand out favorably in my mind, and it's stuff like, and it is stuff that James Mangold excels at, which is the character drama and getting into the nitty gritty. You see it in Logan. You see it in Ford versus Ferrari with the dynamic between Christian Bale and Matt Damon. He's really good at the interpersonal relationships and making them seem grounded and real, and that comes across very well in this movie.
I'd rewatch this movie just because I don't think people are giving enough credit to the crazy shots that it takes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the opening sequence will hold up, just not for any of the reasons that people thought it would in retrospect. I think it'll be this fascinating thing to look at and watch that is its own short film that plays out.
Yeah.
And then the ending is so striking and off the wall. You have those two caps to the movie. And then in the middle of the movie, yes, you have some action scenes that are recognizable in other movies and then don't measure up. But at the same time, you have the classic sort of things that you want. They have a real location of a tomb for them to explore. And even though that place feels like tiny and it doesn't feel like as grand as other things, that's still, like, that's my favorite thing about Indiana Jones is hiking up and crawling into a cave and finding a tomb and solving puzzles and doing all of this stuff. It's there. And then this idea of the characters' relationships and the way they form and twist, and it's not a conventional fetch quest.
Right.
It's set up like it's a fetch quest, but the reasons for the characters doing what they're doing mutate over the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And their allegiances twist. And then there's a lot of conveniences and, they should have shot someone here and they didn't, and But, like, I think this movie is very rich for looking back on it fondly over repeat viewings. Thank you all for listening. We are This Film Not Rated. You can find us on Twitter at TFNRCMEL. We are a branch of the Drive-In Podcast Network, so check out the MusicCityDriveIn.com. I'm Eric. You can find me at High Contrast FLM.
And I am Curtis. You can find me at TalkAnimeGA on Twitter.
And we hope you enjoyed some of this conversation. I think it was a little bit more like mundane and thoughtful rather than excited, but I think this movie warrants more thought than it's being given credit for. And if that bored you, you're probably not here right now. But give us your thoughts if you did make it to here. Tell us what you think of it. Tell us, your take on the movie. Just don't give us a rating.